Mary Catherine Ham, Brian Wilson, Brian Neiman, today's newsmakers, and you. The Morning Majority, 630.
WMAL. 6:37 with the Morning Majority. Brian Neiman, Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, and Lanny Davis is here, as he usually joins us on Thursdays. Hey, Lanny.
I refuse to be happy this morning.
Well, we're not very happy this morning either. We talked about it. We're going to talk about it next hour. All right, Mr. Purple Nation. The president decides wants to give a speech in front of Congress and in front of the nation, joint session of Congress, which doesn't happen all that often, let's be honest. He wants to do this on the day that the Republicans are having one of their debates. And the Republicans obviously said, Mr. President, we'd like for you to move that. And the White House is saying, it was just a coincidence that they chose the night that the Republicans were going to have a debate. You've been in politics and in Washington for quite some time. You've served in the White House. Is this really a coincidence, Lanny?
Well, actually, I saw some pigs flying yesterday, so it's possible. No, look, I like Barack Obama. I'm going to vote for Barack Obama. I agree with almost all of his policies. He should be embarrassed and chagrined, and the reason that I believe he is that he immediately corrected what is a tremendous blank up, but I won't say that on family radio. If this were the Democrats who did this to George Bush, and you can imagine the cries of outrage if George Bush proposed a State of the Union speech in the middle of a Democratic presidential debate, is there any doubt there's a single Democrat who wouldn't say, this is really ridiculous?
Do you think...
So whoever made this decision in the White House to call it a coincidence, they should say, look, we were trying to preempt the Republican debate. It was a dumb idea, and when you do something dumb, you correct it quickly, and Barack Obama did correct it quickly. So over and out, let's move on.
But hold it, Lanny. I mean, the president had to know about discussions about which day this speech was going to take place. The president had to be brought into that circle. This was not made unilaterally without the president's knowledge.
I think if the president knew, and I think you're probably right that he did know, he just made the mistake, and he corrected it. Good for him. He's not perfect, but Democrats shouldn't even come close to trying to justify this, because just put the shoe on the other foot. It isn't even close. But having said that, I think it is let us say, a big deal over not much, as long as he corrected it quickly. Now, if he had held on to it and insisted on making a big deal over it, then I'd be a lot more...
But, Lanny, they did make a big deal out of it. I mean, the White House got very defensive about it. They said it was just a coincidence. They stood their ground. They stood their ground all day long until finally about 9:30, after the news cycle was over, they caved.
Listen, these are my fellow Democrats. They're good people. They have their hearts in the right places. Their minds were still up in Martha's Vineyard. That's all I can say.
Well, I want to know...
It's corrected, but there's no question it cannot be justified. The Republicans are entitled to a debate, and we should be respectful of that. They'll form a suicide circle and shoot within. We should allow them their moment in the sun. This is good for us, and it's just bad form, and I think Barack Obama corrected it, even if it took them a few hours.
But give me your honest political assessment of why they thought it was a good idea to do this. Because they knew that it was going to, bump up against the debate and cause a problem. Why? What was the purpose of it? What did they think they had to gain from it?
You're reminding me of when President Eisenhower was asking, you think of anything good that Richard Nixon has done as vice president, and he said, can you give me 6 months and I'll get back to you? I can't think of a reason.
All right.
There literally is... It's impossible to understand why they thought this was a good idea, if anyone did. But I give them credit for pretty quickly, within a half a day, fixing them.
All right, you're giving them credit, but basically they really didn't have any other choice. I mean, once Jim DeMint said, if you want to go down that path, then I'll hang it up in the Senate, and it ain't going to happen anyway.
I think
I think that it wasn't as if they came to the right decision on their own. They came to the decision because there was no other option. They were standing their ground on this,
in life,
Lanny.
You make mistakes, and sometimes it looks right when you're making the judgment. Maybe somebody had a logic that we can preempt the Republican debate, but again, anybody who calls in who disagrees with me, and if there's anyone in the White House, these are all people who I support, who I'm rooting for, so I'm a friend. When you make a mistake, you own up to it. It's a big, big screw up.
But you got to admit, it was a pretty rookie mistake,
out.
right?
There's no Democrat who's going to call in disagreeing with me who will answer the following question. If George Bush had done this in the middle of a Democratic debate, what would you have said?
Let me ask you this. Do we really need a joint session of Congress for this speech?
Yes.
Why?
I think because jobs is the only big issue of our time right now, along with our national debt. Those are the two big issues. And I think I talked to you last week about the need for both of those issues to be addressed at the same time. I hope President Obama finally endorses the Simpson-Bowles Commission report 100% top to bottom, and then calls for a Public Works FDR-like jobs program where he pays for it out of current spending programs. That's what I'm hoping for, but this is the big issue, and I think that a joint session of Congress, and let's hope we can get a bipartisan reaction to a proposal. Let's hope that this focuses the country on those two problems.
One of the president's high-profile investments in green jobs went belly up or bankrupt yesterday. It's been in the news a lot. Not a great note to go into the speech on, where he has to compete with the NFL already. Will green jobs be part of this in light of the many bankruptcies we've seen of the businesses that we invested in against our will? Well,
there are certain types of green jobs that pay for themselves immediately, so I'm really for zero budgeting here. No credit cards can be allowed to be spent anymore unless, contrary to Eric Cantor, there's an emergency storm where I'll certainly give way to a credit card. Eric Cantor asked for aid using a credit card when it was his district several years ago, so there's a hypocrisy that's disappointing, because I think Eric Cantor's a pretty good man, but this was completely hypocritical of him to talk about paying for emergency aid because of the storm.
Well, this is in his district this time, too.
Look, the answer is that Democrats and Republicans have to stop playing games, and the American people are so fed up with the games in Washington that I really said, I think to you before, that I fear that there might be a third-party movement if this doesn't get better. So let's just hope this joint session of Congress, we have a bipartisan shot of the entire Congress coming together with the president to solve the problem, unemployment, and this national debt.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Lanny. I'm almost in total agreement with you today.
Well,
on at least one question.
Mark this
it down.
day on the calendar.